XCN is dead, and here's why. This chart proves it. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name's Neil. Keeping technical analysis short and sweet, and it's not. Just right off the bat, it's not dead. So those of you who are freaking out just clicking the title, it's not, and I'll explain why here. So Bitcoin is now underneath 108,000, which we really didn't want it to go below that. However, people are still buying up within this area. BlackRock, all the major companies in MicroStrategy, all of them are taking this opportunity to stack their bags bigger because, 108,000 down to 104,000, $4,000 difference on a coin is pretty massive for them to keep accumulating. And we've seen this in the past with liquidity sweeps and many, many things. I'm actually going to show you a quick example, which I've brought up in a previous one. I'm going to talk about XRP in a different video, but let's look at XRP and what happened right before we had the major takeoff. So this is a great example. We hit a low. Everybody's like, okay, we got a little bit of support, consolidation, got that support, tried breaking that 200 EMA and major liquidity sweep. Bunch of people selling off, saying, okay, I could probably get it for a little bit cheaper. It's only 41 cents. It may go down to 25 cents. That's a possibility. No, they just took all your money and then went the exact opposite direction, had a little bit of a pullback, and you're like, okay, now it might drop a little bit lower. No, it didn't. They had that pullback up and eventually broke that downward trend line and went from 50 cents all the way up here to around $2.88 before pulling back into the CM Guppy and back up to $3.38. Enough with XRP, that's for a different video. XCN, it's obviously not holding this double bottom due to market manipulation, but what I really want you to keep in mind is the RSI. RSI is completely oversold. It's out of its bounds. It's out of its element, Larry, I'll tell you that. So since we've seen in the past, let's go back here. This is when I first started looking at XCN. I said, okay, the CM Guppy's starting to thin out. We're starting to build some kind of base. And what else? Let's look down here. RSI completely oversold and then brought right back up to the 50, which is this little pop right here that pushed it up to 0.0014. Then it pulled back, a little bit of consolidation. Keep your eyes on the RSI. And then right here, oversold, but still in a downward consolidation, trying to get everybody to sell out, get rid of their bag while it consolidates. And looking back at the RSI, we pull up to the 50, touch on this oversold. And when you look at the RSI, let's go down here and let's build this up for you. Bottom and building higher lows. So with those higher lows, we are getting more volume. And that little bit of volume is actually right where I had my first entry on XCN, right down here at 0.000, I think it was around 82 maybe. And then we had that pop up, consolidation. We are now above the CM Guppy, pushed up again, holding above the 50 on the CM Guppy before it ultimately pushed up from there to here, which is around 229%. For those of you who it's your first time in crypto, it's definitely a game that gives you anxiety, but I've been in this for many years. I've gotten over the anxiety part. Yeah, I have an issue where I destroy my body when I'm freaking out, and pain is pleasure in some form, but we are looking at 0.00693 downward consolidation, and I'm not sure what happened to the RSI, but let's bring the RSI back. Come on. Bringing RSI back. Where is it at? Relative Strength Index. Boom. Completely oversold. So what can we expect from this? Everybody has sold what they can sell. We may see a lower drop, somebody doing some sort of liquidity sweep. You can't control the market. You just can't. And so we can expect with this downward momentum, even if we have another pullback, it may even push a little bit further. Dash would be a great example where it breaks out of the RSI and then has a further push, which could be pretty major. It could be pushing it all the way down here to 0.002, but with a major support and pushing it right back up to where we are currently at. So if you're thinking about selling, don't do it. I can't tell you, like, I can't force you to not sell. That's always up to you guys. I'm not a financial advisor in any way, but I've been in this market for many, many, many years, probably a good 33% of my life or more. And I've seen this happen many times before, where it gets people to sell their bag. They think, okay, it's going to go to zero, and then that's just it. My thousands and thousands of dollars just gone. No, not with XCN. With maybe a meme coin, with something else, that's a high possibility. But with XCN, you may see a liquidity sweep. And we are building a low right here, which can immediately just come right back. For those of you who are down, as I talked about in the previous video, say you were trying to enter in at that downward trend line, it could be down 68% or more. And you could start seeing that 80 to 90% decrease in price. But if you're worried about 80 to 90% decrease in price, people who are in the stock market think that's unreasonable. In the crypto market, it's not, because 80 to 90% decrease is nothing, even though that could be your entire bag. Because what are you holding for? You're holding for something that's more than 80 or 90% increase. You're not just looking for double money. Say you're entered at 13 cents or higher, 618 is 155%. You're like, okay, that's not much. What's 90% decrease when you get 155% increase? We're not looking at 155% increase. We're looking at potentially 271, potentially 484, potentially just up to the 10 cents, 697. So there's a lot more upside potential to XCN than there is to the downside. So when you start seeing it's tanking, it's the government getting their hands into cryptocurrency and trying to create their own bags. They want everybody to sell. They don't want anybody to be rich except for them. And you guys playing this crypto game, myself included, we're in it for the long run. You're not, I mean, unless you're doing scalp trading, which I'll explain further whenever we start moving upwards, breaking this downward red trend line. When this gets broken, I'm going to start explaining scalps, because we could see a quick increase once this breaks to here up to 22 or 0.22, quick rejection down to 0.031, which is a lot of potential profit from there to here. That's a potential 36% that you could actually stack a bigger bag for XCN before its next push up, which would be around the 618 at 46% from that point. But say you're entering in off of testing this downward trend line, that's not 46%, that's 138%. So the 90% decrease for 138% increase, there's a lot more potential upside for XCN in the long run. It's not dead. For those of you who are panicking, my portfolio could be down 10K. I'm not worried about it. I don't even have a job at the moment. I'm not worried about it. Tranquilo. Be calm. It's part of the market manipulation. What our technical analysis was showing is this should have touched this line and broken to the upside already. But what we saw right here, market manipulation. So with market manipulation, that controls the game. The whales, the people, the government, all selling off to the people who are entering, waiting for that push up. They're starting to panic sell, and they want to say, okay, I've lost $7,000, maybe less, maybe more. I'm good. I'm going to get out. I was like, okay, well, dumbass. I mean, pardon my language, but don't sell. We are oversold. With oversold, that just means that it has to go up. Look over here. This is overbought, but we had that major push up, and with that one peak, we are sitting only at this point. So entry right here, that was my next entry after the scalp trades, 483% profit, sell off, and then we had a little bit of consolidation before that next push up being around 1,683%. And you say, Neil, why did you enter in there? I mean, I had entries from here, sell off, here, sell off, and then waited, had an entry here, had a sell off, and then why did I enter again? Well, let's look at it. We broke a downward trend line, which is kind of like the red line I've been explaining. And with that, we pushed up over consolidation. This bar right here with this little wick off would be our testing of support, and then a major push up, consolidation, And then we start building that upward trend line with the major bullish movement upwards. So even though we did not hold, we had that liquidity sweep, there's still a little bit more liquidity sweep that can happen, and it can be pretty dramatic and scare a lot of people. But when you zoom in, look at this. The volume is picking up. We are building higher volume, and we are testing lower in price. What is that called? That is called divergence, which typically has more of a bullish momentum. As we have seen, let's see, for example, we had increase in price. I'm not going to go for that. Let's not talk about that because I'm not going to spend 20 minutes looking for a better example. This is just me pulling up the chart and explaining it to you guys. For those of you guys who are trapped in this, don't panic sell. Hold your horses. Hold on to your bags, because even though the drop may not be over yet, you can see a very quick increase. Say you're selling here looking for the next low. You want to try and hit it here and get that absolute low. Well, if you're selling there, that's about a 52% decrease, which does have the opportunity to pull in quite a bit of money. But if you're already down 52%, it makes no difference to be selling off and then rebuying back in. You're wasting your time doing that. The potential upside from this point, however, is 113% before a little bit of rejection. Beyond that, obviously a lot higher, a lot more potential profit. For those of you who do have money, you could always stack a bigger bag for XCN, or you could use your money and buy some Tornado Cash. Still just above the $11 mark, which is very, very strong support. We are in consolidation, even though this is downward. It's still a very good buying opportunity. Everything else being crashing a lot bigger percentage. Tornado Cash has been holding very, very steady. Wash is cryptocurrency. RSI is healthy. Volume is more or less minimal. But this one wick off does kind of scare people. So we may see that testing off the $11 mark. And you can trade Tornado Cash on MEXC. The reference link is in the description below. If you use that reference link, you get 20 USDT for free, and you can use that to almost buy 2 Tornado Cash. Keeping in mind the all-time high is $459 for Tornado Cash, and looking back in previous history, even with downward consolidation, it has major potential to move a ridiculous amount within 1 to 2 days. From this low point, say at 370 more or less, 1,000% increase within 2 days, 500% a day. You can expect the same thing with XCN. And Tornado Cash is just definitely a good bet to be entering. You can't turn $12 into $500,000 with really anything else in the world, so this is a very good opportunity. That's kind of it for this video. I'm going to cover XRP, AMP, and a few others on another video, but good luck. Have fun with it. Donate. Give me some money. I give back to the people who can't afford to pay for their dogs' surgeries. 10% goes to saving animals' lives. And good luck. Have fun with it. Like and subscribe.